So when we look at biology, we often talk about biology in themes. We talk about ecosystems, we talk about anatomy, we talk about physiology, we talk about biochemistry, we talk about microbiology. These are all really themes in biology, large umbrellas of information that are going to bring together a lot of smaller topics. But when we look at evolution, this really is probably the largest umbrella that we have of any in biology. And evolution is simply change over time. So we will spend much of our discussions thinking about how a cell is changing over time, how that may influence the organism, how that may change the organism, and how that might change the ability or the potential for that organism to survive and eventually reproduce. So we'll look a lot at how this theme really ties into all the parts of biology that we're going to discuss. So the cells that we're going to start talking about, let's focus on you mostly here. We're going to think about cells that have DNA. So DNA, we'll look at its structure, we'll think about it, okay? This is all forthcoming, but I want to give you some basic terminology so as I discuss it, you're not feeling totally lost, okay? So when we look at DNA, DNA in your cells is the primary component of 46 chromosomes. When we look at those 46 chromosomes, we can take each one, all 46, and we can break it down into simple pieces that we're going to refer to as genes. Now, these genes have very particular functions. They are going to help to regulate everything that's going on in your body. They're going to give instruction to build all kinds of things, but in particular, proteins. So if I want to make a protein, let's say I want to make lactase. Lactase is a protein. It's actually an enzyme. I know it's an enzyme because it ends in ASE. ASE equals an enzyme. So this protein, lactase, what do you think it breaks down? Enzymes break down compounds. They break down molecules. What does lactase sound like? Well, some of you may know lactose. OSE are sugars. Where is the lactose sugar found? You may not have known it was a sugar. It's in milk, right? And milk products. Some of you may be lactose intolerant, meaning you can't break down lactose. If you can't break it down, it actually makes you feel pretty sick, right? Well, the reason you can't break it down is because you lack lactase. Without lactase, you cannot break down lactose. So the gene that makes lactase, so there's a gene in your chromosomes that makes lactase. Maybe that gene's not functional. Maybe you don't produce any lactase. If you don't make the lactase, you can't break down the lactose, and then you can't have milk. Well, you can, but you don't feel very well afterwards, right? So we'll look at all different kinds of genes. You have many more than just lactase. Everything about you has a gene that makes it. Your eye color, your hair color, how long your toes are. You have information in your DNA and in your chromosomes stored in genes that makes up every single part of you. So when we really look at you, you really are just a bunch of genes that make proteins. it's not very special feeling, but how we put those proteins together is extremely special. And what we look at, the difference between you and your brothers and sisters and all of your classmates, are those differences in the DNA sequences, differences in genes, differences in how you make proteins, okay? Or the proteins that you make in particular, okay? So we'll look at how in every single living organism, the code to make this protein is the same. But when the code is altered, you make a slightly different protein, and eventually we end up with different looking organisms. We end up with different traits and characteristics between similar organisms, all of these things. And it's all because of strands of DNA like this. So if we look at this, maybe this is a gene. Maybe this is the gene for eye color. It's not. The gene for eye color is much longer, but bear with me. So it's a short section of this DNA. We'll look at this DNA structure and how it's so important and how it comes together, and how by using these pieces of DNA, we can actually go in and look at how diverse life is.